As I've been journeying, putting out videos regarding the red pill community and addressing some of the ideologies that are prescribed in this space, I've come to learn that there actually might be a deeper rooted issue than before. And in today's video, we're going to journey through what this issue is and why it's bigger than maybe I once thought it was. Some of my recent videos, I have seen comments referring to morality and dating, and morality can't be brought into the dating market, and prescribing to men that morals is necessary and important is actually leading men to failure. All these kinds of things, in some way, shape or form, carrying a goal of removing morality from dating because it's not beneficial and guys don't get anywhere with it. I find this very troubling in a lot of ways. And I actually just want to take a second just defining morality for a second. And in the end, I'm going to sum up why it's important for morality to be included in our search for dating, in dating markets, in our availability, in relationships that we create, and the dangers in removing such. But let's look at the definitions here. Principles concerning the distinction between right and wrong or good and bad behavior. Okay, so morals essentially result in standard, result in principles, and result in law. Because without standards, you settle for anything, settle or fall for anything, and anybody and everybody has the opportunity to abuse you, misuse you, mistreat you. There's no line, there's no boundary. Without standard, you can just go for anything. Nothing really seems to have some kind of balance, starting place. Anybody can come at you any kind of way, approach you any kind of way, and you just roll with the flow. And we see how in many ways that probably isn't the move, right? Considering the way that you want to be approached, talked to, treated, just simply as a human being. Of course, along with that, our own definitions are created. Really isn't beneficial because then it's all opinionated and there's no truth there. There's no basis, no reference, and that gets dangerous. But without principles, there's no foundation, there's no values, there's no direction. Compatibility, relatability is pretty much non-existent if we are going to remove principles from relationships that we create. Again, this piggybacks off of standards and why standards are necessary. But even furthermore, we're talking about values, what we care for, what we value most in our lives, right? So when it comes to relationships, creating relationships with others, we seem to find most compatibility and relatability with people who share the same values, people who care about the same things we do, who have similar interests. That is easily groundbreaking for any relationship we're desiring to create with others. And without it, we really don't have as strong of a push to create a relationship with said person, encounter said person, deal with anything about them, because there's not much about them that we find relatable. Therefore, it's kind of like, I could care less. And of course, without law, there's no safety. There's no protection. Okay. I mean, think about a country that is lawless, no standards. It's almost like the purge. It's going crazy, right? There's no safety there. And of course, as a result, there's no consequences and anything goes, right? And so we know off of these three things alone, when we remove them from any kind of setting, there's a lot of chaos that happens. We can just agree to that at least, right? Like there's a lot of chaos that takes place when we remove morality from any kind of setting, let alone relationships, dating markets, what we're pursuing in people, all those kinds of things. And so here's something that I think that might actually draw a picture even deeper to really help you see that you too also believe in morality in some way, shape, or form, even if you don't identify morality to come from the ultimate creator and God himself, which I do think presents a lot of dilemma and struggle and things of that sort, but that's another conversation for another day. If you can acknowledge that something is evil, you also, by way of acknowledging something is evil, assume to know what is good. And if you assume to know the difference between good and evil by what you see, by what you view, by the actions that others do, you are also assuming morality, your belief in morality, that there is a moral standard, moral law that humans seem to follow or ought to follow. But again, with all these three things, my question to you is, where does this morality or moral standard come from? Who sets and determines how we ought to live this life, do this life? Who determines that, hey, murder is wrong and is wrong, molestation is wrong, assault is wrong? Who is to set that standard, moral standard, distinction between good and bad, good and evil? If you ask me, God. And who's this point of reference? Genesis chapter 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. God, who is the only self-sufficient being, and through his order, through his law, created life, created everything as we see it, as we know it to be. And I think we just see a consistent contradiction in such a way of thinking. If we're going to say, hey, we're going to remove morality from scenario, that scenario, this place and that place, as if right and wrong, good and evil, good and bad behavior isn't surrounding us in everyday life. So we just kind of contradict ourselves when we choose to close our eyes from the things that are good and evil, and at the same time want to call out the things that are wrong, that are bad, that are righteous, justice. Like we can't really call those things out and at the same time pick and choose where we want morality to be, where we want morality to exist, and where we want to consider to count morality in any kind of way of our life. So cool. We broke down morality. We broke down definitions, all of that good stuff. So here's really the root issue that I have found as of late, just kind of listening to certain comments and listening to further breakdowns from the red pill community, their thoughts on things, all of that stuff. There is a fundamental error when it comes to truth. Truth that includes morality. Truth that is overarching and universal. There is a misconception of really what truth is. So red pill will tell you, hey, we know the truth about the statistics of men, the statistics of the dating pool, the statistics of marriage and divorce. We know all of these things. We know how, of course, according to the red pill, how women work, trying to break it down to a science, why men are getting rejected, all these kinds of things. And again, there's a lot of truth that's given there, right? Acknowledging a man's pains from rejections, traumatic experiences, not really sure how to recoup and recover from it. And so, again, there's a lot of these prescriptions that are given to men on how to go about dealing with certain separations and trying to give you game on women. But what the problem is a lot of you guys seem to think that morality is something that we're able to pick and choose where it can be and where it should be. And this particular situation in dating markets, in relationships, in men to women comparisons, we're just going to eradicate morality. Do away with it because it's not going to help men get what they want. And I think that's a huge issue because anytime we remove morality from anything, it gets nasty. There's extreme chaos that surrounds us. My question is, where do we stop? Where does the buck stop? Where do we then decide, hey, it's okay to add morality here. It's okay to add morality here, but it's not okay here. Where does that line really stop? So in order to build proper relationships, in order to create positive, healthy relationships, not only is morality necessary, but I would also argue that God is necessary. God is necessary for us to even create relationships among one another. And furthermore, have standards in healthy relationships with one another, God being at the center, to be able to maximize and experience the fullness of love that he is and he grants, thereby allowing us to love one another to such a great capacity. When we strip morality and we begin to pick and choose where morality belongs, chaos ensues. And instead of love and endearing relationships, what takes its place is lust, greed, illicit pleasure, and abuse. And we can all agree that these things are not conducive, productive, effective to the society around us. And I know what you might be thinking, like, oh, well, you're going to the extremes. You're doing too much. That's not even the point. But check this out. When we remove morality, that's exactly where we're headed. To a culture and to a surrounding that could care less about what's right and wrong, what's good and what's evil. We then begin to grow desensitized, as it seems that red pill is really carrying the perspective of, to a certain extent, of, hey, like I don't really care a whole lot about what is considered right or wrong. I'm no longer interested in doing the right thing because essentially I thought I was doing the right thing and being loving and caring to a woman and then got rejected. So I'm just going to match energy and do what they do and spend my time building body counts. Oh, but it's just it's a means, it's not the end. It's just the means of being. It's the effect, the side effect of being a high value man. Like, no, it really isn't though. When has the point of life ever been? When has the a side effect to the point of life ever been to have as many women as possible and to be able to hit any chick that you could see and you could get and you can pull? I just think we miss the purpose. And again, it's distorted though, because some of it is from the hurt and pain, the rejection. Some of it is due to, again, the traumatic experience that you had. And so it's kind of shifted your worldview and perspective. And I think that's worth considering, because now what it sounds like, at least from, again, the very few people that have come in my comment section to mention this, but nonetheless something I thought was necessary to address, is, oh, so then we're not going to worry about morality because morals is setting guys up for failure. I would argue that morals actually sets humans and humanity up for the best success possible, because without morality in any given scenario and in any given environment, we are headed toward a very dangerous place where we are no longer valuing human souls and we are giving in to illicit pleasures at the cost of violating each other as human beings. And if we are going to suggest that the violation of another human being in any kind of way is wrong, we are at the same time suggesting that we know what is good, what is right, which also assumes a moral standard. And if you ask me, that moral standard starts with the ultimate creator and God himself. And so when we come to the question of truth, morality, knowing the difference between good and bad, when we look to understand the depths of love, purpose, when we look to understand the depths of relationship with one another, the importance of such, all these things that carry morality, when we exclude that, we're just giving ourselves away to animalistic behavior. I think everybody in their right minds would suggest that that's not optimal to human flourishing in any kind of way. And so if you are going to suggest that we should remove morality from dating and morals is least of the worries and we shouldn't care about it, we shouldn't focus on it, then you vicariously also admit through that same statement that you now lose the privilege to be upset if a female mistreats you, rejects you, cheats on you, and does you dirty in any kind of way. You lose the right to be upset. If we're going to remove morals from the dating market and we're going to remove morals from all these processes, because morals isn't something that we should focus on, then you don't have any reference, any point of reference as to why you feel you're in the right for being upset about being did in by another female, about being cheated on, left for another guy, vice versa for women to men. You have no point of reference for why you even engage in the dating market, in the dating pool, why you even desire to have as many women as you want before you get to the place of settling down. And as we've talked about in previous videos, neurochemistry behind that, it really messes you up over time. But I'm just saying that I don't think you have a point of reference or why you do what you do or what you're looking to gain from the actions you do if you remove morality. And so my biggest thing here with this entire video that I hope gets over to you clear is that morality is not only needed in the dating market, morality is necessary in all forms of life, because the worst case scenarios await us when we exclude morality. And when we go around and we try to convince ourselves that, hey, we can pick and choose where morality stands and where morality goes, we are essentially abandoning moral compass, moral law, We're essentially abandoning truth in and of its essence. And that isn't conducive or helpful to human flourishing that's around us. And I think we always will have a problem if that is our mindset and perspective going into relationships, going into the dating field, going into building friendships, going into building connections with other people. Because we then will find a way to excuse ourselves to commit illicit pleasures towards others at the cost of violating them as human beings. These are human souls we're talking about. And so I think we just need to stop playing like this, as if it's okay to pick and choose where morality stands and falls, where morality can and can't be used. Because what it sounds like at its height from these comments and from these thoughts that I'm sure so many other people share among this community, I'm not saying all, but I'm sure quite a few. What we're essentially saying is, I don't care about right and wrong, good and evil. I just want what I want, and I want to do what I want to do, no matter who it hurts, no matter what cost. I want to go after that, and I want all the side effects of being a high value man, having all the women, having access to and having access to all this money and wealth, and I'm being a gym bro and I'm getting in there. And again, what's crazy is all these things, money, fitness, these aren't bad things. It becomes perverted when we're using it in such a manner as Red Pill would prescribe it, especially in the relationship space. When we place it in the right context that it's such things were created for, under the confinements, under the standard and principle of God, that is where all of these things are most effective, most useful, and most beneficial and optimal to the flourishing of humanity, when we choose to do things the way that God intended them to be. So no, we can't exclude morality. We can't exclude God. We can't exclude these things from the relationships we're looking to create with people, the dating market, trying to decide to how to become the right man for the right woman. All these things are necessary. And when we start excluding that, the chaos ensues, and we have where we are now, and we're way worse when we continue to move forward in that way. And I don't say this to dunk on Red Pill. I don't say this to make any guy out there who is a part of this community to be some evil monster or anything of that sort. That is definitely not my intention, because I really do believe that a lot of that comes from a place of hurt, and a lot of that comes from a place of unhealed wounds, and a lot of that comes from traumatic responses. And that's a lot of internal work that has to be dealt with. But we do see how, again, when wounds like that are created and we don't do anything about it, these are some of the suggestions, the thoughts that circulate our minds and seem good and seem like the move. And it's a lot of short-term animalistic approaches. And we exclude a lot of important things that I think really damage us, humanity, relationships in the long run. And there's no good that comes out of that. And so I just want you to think about that. What are your thoughts on morality and dating? Is it necessary? Is it needed? Is it something that you would prescribe to others to move forward in if they're having a dating process, they're going through a dating process? What are your thoughts on that? Definitely leave it in the comment section below. Again, if you ask me, morality is more than necessary. It's without it, we don't even have a point of reference to do what we do in anything. And without it, it's straight chaos, and it's a chaotic scene that I don't think any of us really truly want to be a part of when we really understand the long-term effects of such things. And I just think it's more beneficial to do things and do life God's way, even when it comes to building relationships, dating, and things of that sort. So I appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. If you like this kind of content, be sure to subscribe, share this with a friend, comment below what your thoughts were, and be sure to turn on the post notifications so you know the next time we're posting. And I appreciate you so much for tuning in. Got so much more good content on the way. And until our next conversation, be easy and be breezy, my friend. Peace.